Hi guys, in this video we are going to create our own chatbot using the OpenAI platform with React.js, and let me demonstrate what we are going to exactly build. So over here I have a simple form with one input, that is a user input, and here we can ask the chatbot anything. So I'm just going to type hello, and I'm going to submit the form as the question type set to general. Let's wait a few seconds, and there it is. Hi there, how can I help you? Next, let's translate this hello to Spanish. And there we have the result. Next, let's change the question type to weather. I'm going to press submit. And we have can't answer this. But if I ask, what is the weather in Portugal? We will have a response related to the weather in Portugal. The weather in Portugal is generally mild with temperatures ranging from the mid-50s to the mid-70s Fahrenheit. Alright guys, so this is what we are going to create. Without further ado, let's get started. Alright guys, before we get started, let's take a look at what have I done so far. So I started a brand new React application with npx create React app. The name of my application is chatbot app. And I also added Bootstrap. So to be more precise, React Bootstrap. Let's go to the official React Bootstrap documentation. And in order to install it, you need to run npm install React Bootstrap Bootstrap and also import the CSS. So I did it exactly as it is over here, and you can see it in my app.js file. Now what we need to do is to install two additional dependencies, the OpenAI and .env. So let's go ahead and access the terminal, quit the development server from running, and npm install OpenAI and .env. Once the installation is complete, simply run the development server again using npm start. Next, let's head over to the platform OpenAI.com in order to create a secret key. We are going to keep this secret key in the .env file, which we are going to create in just a few seconds. And then with the use of the .env package, we are going to read its value to the app.js file. So let's go back to Visual Studio Code, and over here in the source directory, let's create a .env file. And then inside of this .env file, let's write React app and then OpenAI key. And here, within those two quotation marks, place your secret key obtained from OpenAI. Right? Back in app.js file, we are now going to check if we can actually obtain the value of the key from our .env file. So over here, I'm going to run process.env and then React app OpenAI key, I think it was like this. And then I'm going to perform slice and just grab a few characters over here, okay? So I'm going to save this and then go back to our app, and there is a problem. All right, so I restarted the development server, and here are the first 5 characters of my OpenAI API key. All right, let's go back, and now what we can do is to create a configuration object that we will use in our fetch method later on. So in order to do this, we need to import configuration from OpenAI. Configuration, I need to import it manually, I think. Import from OpenAI, and we want to import configuration. There it is, and then we can set a new variable called configuration. Set it to new configuration and set the API key to process.env React App OpenAI key. All right. As the next step, let's take a look at the state variables that are required for our project. So first of all, we are going to set a question type. By default, we are going to set it as general. So we need the useState hook. Let's set the default to general, and then let's assign this general to the question type. And then we will have a set question type to update the state, to update these values, okay? So this is the first thing. Then we will have the chatbot response. So initially, it's going to be set to an empty string. And let's write it like this. We will assign to the empty string the CB as chatbot response. And then we will have set CB response to update the value. Next, we will have the user input. User input and set user input. And this is also going to be initially an empty string. Okay, and then we will have an indicator for waiting on the response. So we will have is loading and set is loading. And initially it's going to be false. Okay, so once we submit a user input with a specific question type, this will change to true. We will see a spinner, and once we get the response, we will change this back to false. Before we create some functions within our app component, let's work a little bit on the return statement. So what we want to return instead of hello world and this first 5 characters of the OpenAI key is, first of all, create a row. And within this row, we are going to map the question types. So I'm going to create a list, an array with the types that are available for selecting a question type. So we will have general, okay? Then the next one is going to be translate. And then we are going to have the weather. And then we are going to loop through them with map. And we are going to return. And then what we are going to return is a column. So we need to import call. And we are going to set the key as the element. And within this call, we are going to use a button. Okay. And the button will have a variant of primary. We will then specify the onClick. onClick. All right, and then here we will simply display the element like this. All right, so let's go ahead and save this. And row is not defined, so it didn't do the auto import row. And I think we also need to place in the button over here. Okay. Let's try it once again. Button has already been declared. Here it is. Okay. All right. So we have general, translate, and weather. Now this is working. Let's go back, and below this row, let's just write h3, and here we will have maybe a class name of my, so we want to add some margin to the top and bottom, and we want to add a margin of 3. Inside, we are going to place question type, and with the bold, we will simply display whatever the question type is. So by default, it's going to be general. I'm going to save this, go back, and there it is. Okay, we have in bold font the question type set as general. So what we can do right now is to set a question type with the on click to a specific button that we clicked. So in our case, we just need to write set question type and let's pass in the element. So let's see if this works. Translate weather general. All right. As the next step, below this H3, let's create a form. So let's import it this time manually. And then below the H3 tag, as mentioned before, we are going to create a form with an on submit. On submit, there it is. For now, I'm just going to leave it empty. And we will create the on submit handler in just a second. Then let's add form control. Okay. And here we will have type text. Then we will have the value set to the user input. And now we need an onChange handler. So in order to update the user input, we will have an event and then set user input to target value. Okay. So let's go ahead and save this. And I think this is a self-closing component, so we can do it like this. Let's save this and let's see if this will work. All right, so right now we are able to provide user input. However, we aren't able to submit this user input. So let's add a button below the form control. We already imported button. And here we will have a variant of info. And the type, I'm using caps lock, sorry guys. Variant info. And then type is going to be equal submit. All right. And then we will also provide a class name of margin top 3. And let's just name it submit. All right. Let's save this. And there it is. Okay, so now we need to create a handler for submitting the form. So somewhere over here, let's create a handle send data function. And this handle send data function will be async. And it will be async for us to handle promises because we are going to use the fetch method and we will handle the fetch method which returns a promise with async await syntax. So what I'm going to do over here is pass an event and then I'm going to prevent default. So this form doesn't get sent and the page doesn't get reloaded. And now I'm going to assign handle send data to the on submit. All right, and let's also console log form is submitted. Let's save this. Let's refresh and check inspect. Go to the console, test, submit, form is submitted. All right, this is working. All right, so now that we can collect user input and submit the form, we can now prepare some more specific instructions for the chatbot. So I'm going to create a function called getInstructions. And this function will use the switch case syntax. And here we will set a variable called prompt. But what's important, this function will also accept the question type and input. And the input is going to be the user input passed in the handle send data, and this will ensure that the correct value is being passed even if the state hasn't updated yet. Okay, so let's now continue with our switch case. We will perform the switch on the question type, and the first case is going to be general. If the case is going to be general, then we are going to set the prompt directly to the input, and then we are going to simply break, and then we will take care of the next case, which in our case is going to be translate. If this is going to be the case, we will modify the input inside of the prompt by giving it instruction to translate. So in our case, we will simply write translate this text to Spanish. Okay, and then we will pass in the input over here. Just so you know, I'm using backticks, so you can, using backticks, inject the variable like I did over here. All right, and then we are going to break and focus on the next case, which is going to be the weather. So let's add weather, and here we are going to set the prompt to, again, using backticks, we will write if the question is related to weather, answer it. And here we will inject the input once again. And after the comma, we will add else say can't answer this. All right. So let's also add a break. Then let's set the default to prompt equal to input. And then finally, let's return the prompt. So now in handle send data, we can create a const prompt. And here, let's use the get instructions. And then we are going to pass in the question type as well as the user input, just to ensure that the correct values for the question type and the user input are being passed to get instructions. All right, and then we will receive the prompt from over here. As the next step, let's also set an endpoint. So this is going to be where we are going to set our fetch method URL. And we are going to use the text DaVinci engine. So I'm just going to paste the endpoint over here. So API OpenAI com version 1 engines text DaVinci 003 completions. Okay. All right. What we are missing right now are the params. So we are going to create a params object at the very top, maybe above the configuration. And here we are going to set the temperature, and I'm going to set it to 0.5. So the temperature sets the level of randomness in the AI model's output. So it's from 0 to 1, but the higher the value, the more creative and unexpected results we will get, okay? Then we will have the max tokens, and I'm going to set it to 256. This is the max words we are going to receive the response. So if it's 256, that means there won't be more than 256 words, okay? And yeah, right now, if we go back, we can go back to our handle set data. We can now use these params into the body, but we also need to add the prompt. So let's create a const body. And with the use of spread operator, let's put in our params. And then let's also add the prompt. Okay. And right now we can create a const response, use the await fetch, pass in the endpoint. Then we need to specify the method, and this is going to be the post method. We also need to include headers. So we will have content type set to application JSON. And then we need to add some authorization. So this is the place where we are going to use our configuration object. And let's add this header authorization. And again, I'm using backticks right now. So it's going to be bearer and then configuration. And then we need to access the API key. All right. So as the next step, we are going to pass in the body JSON stringify, and we will pass in the body like this. And let's add a variable data and await response JSON. And then let's console log the data and see if this is actually working. Are we going to get a response from the OpenAI API, or we did something wrong? Okay, so I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to refresh the page and write hello and submit, and we have some error. Temperature. Okay, so I think I made a spelling mistake. Temperature. Okay. I'm going to hit refresh. Hello. Submit. Form is submitted, and there it is. Okay, so we have a response. And let's go to choices, and this is actually the response that we want to grab. Okay, so in order to do this, what we need to do is to go back to Visual Studio Code, and we are now going to use this set CB response to update the state of the CB response. So over here, let's write set CB response. And then we are going to write data choices 0 text. Okay, so this is how we access this particular response. Okay, so choices 0 text. All right, now we can also add the spinner. So I'm going to import the spinner from React Bootstrap, and initially isLoading is set to false. So I'm going to copy set isLoading, and then I'm going to put it over here and set it to true. Then I'm going to delete this console log line of code, and then I'm going to also delete the console log data. Below the set CB response, I'm going to simply set isLoading back to false. All right, so this should work. However, in order to see the spinner, we want to go back to our return statement, and somewhere below the form, let's create just an ordinary div with the class name of margin top 3. And then over here, using the ternary operator, we are going to see if we have this loading set to true. And if this is the case, we are going to then display the spinner. And in other case, what we are going to do is to check if we have the CB response. So CB response, and here again we are going to use the ternary operator, and then if this is the case we are going to display the CB response. In other case we are going to display no question asked. All right, so let's see if this will work or not. Hello there. Okay, we have a response. Hi there, how are you doing? Let's translate it. Submit. And let's see what we will get with the weather. And answer this. Okay, what is the weather like in Spain? The weather in Spain varies depending on the region, but generally it is mild with hot, dry summers and cool, wet winters. Alright guys, so this is working. I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel and we will see each other in the next one. Take care and bye bye.